Hey everyone, what's up? It's Finchinator here. We're back for another Draft League game from the Cash King tournament. This time around, it's a very important game. We're in the round of 32. So the winner of this game, the individual who emerges victorious, will advance to the round of 16, which then becomes double elimination and is all played on Saturday in a live stream for the entire draft community to spectate if they so wish to. Um, right off the bat, I knew this was going to be my hardest opponent yet. He had a very cool team, which we're going to get to in a minute, like we always do. And on top of that, I also knew that the further I got, the opponents naturally would get stronger and stronger. And while I played some very worthy adversaries thus far, I know this guy, Mustang, is his main name. He played in Alt Toilet Paper 2020 for the battle. But Mustang is a strong player, and I've seen some replays from playing in other tournaments. He definitely can and will play very high level games. He can play long games. He can play aggressively in the short game, and he definitely knows what he's doing in terms of prep. So I know he's going to have my hands full here, and because of that, I feel I really had to pull out all the stops and put my best foot forward, not only in prep but also in play. He had some threats to my team, probably more than some of my past opponents, barring the last guy who I played, who I also feel had some nice threats to my team. Um, so we're getting to the point where I'm playing people who have competent drafts, people who have confident team building skills, and people who have competent playing skills. And if you combine all three of those, you kind of get the full package. And in my opinion, that means that these games are going to be high level. That means these games are going to be competitive. That means these games are going to be close. And to win those games consistently, you really have to be on top of your stuff. So this is going to prove if I really am a capable player of transitioning from Smogon to draft, or maybe I need some more time. And if I do need more time, then maybe I fall short here. And that would be completely fine. But maybe on the other hand, I do emerge victorious and I show that I'm really a little ahead of the curve for someone without much experience. And that would really boost my confidence going into Saturday. So confidence is a huge thing as well. But before I mumble jumble on so many other little things that I've been thinking about going into this game, let's get into the teams like we always do. I know a lot of people love how in depth I get, so here goes nothing. His team has Mega Gallade, Zapdos, Ferrothorn, Suicune, Crocodile, Rabambi, Turtonator, and Haunter. So if you look at the first 4 or 5 picks, honestly, the first 5 picks, it's a super conventional draft with a lot of good mons. Getting Gallade plus Zapdos in the first 2 rounds is fantastic. It probably shows that some people in this pool didn't really know what they were doing. Is getting those two doesn't seem entirely likely to me, although a lot of newer players tend to sleep on things like Zapdos, and in my opinion, Zapdos should always go late 1 or early 2. And Mega Gallade, of course, a top 5, 7 pick in all honesty. So yeah, getting both of those just shows that there's a lot going on. But also, he nabbed Suicune in round 4, and Ferrothorn as a steal is just phenomenal in a lot of cases. So I had my hands full dealing with all of these threats, and let's go through how all of these threats could cause unique problems to me. Gallade, right off the bat, I do have one of the better counters to it in the game in Mega Slowbro. However, it does have bulk to withstand anything hit-wise besides foul play. So I knew I had to run foul play right off the bat. And even then, if I stay in regular form, I could potentially die to a +2 hit after rocks if he's adamant. So also, I might have to Mega Evolve early. I had to keep it healthy regardless, so big threat. And you can also run a Substitute plus Disable. You can run Toxic, potentially. You can run Shadow Sneak for something like Aegislash or taking out Tornadus, and so on and so forth. So I knew that I'd have to be aggressive. I knew that I'd have to keep my eye on the ball and really not give it too many free openings, and also keep my checks intact. So there's definitely a lot of pressure that Gallade put on, despite me being relatively prepared with it with Slowbro and also Aegislash and Tornadus. So like, compared to the average team, I was definitely more prepared for Gallade naturally than normal. A lot of people are even less prepared than this, much less prepared than this. And those people, my God, just watch out. This guy's going to come kill you, this Gallade. Zapdos is his next Pokemon, and I also happen to have one of the better counters to it in Rhyperior. However, what makes Zapdos stand out so good against teams that lack like Max Special Defense Rhyperior or Magic Guard Clefable, although against those you could potentially so did I say Rhyperior? I meant against teams that lack Max Special Defense Gliscor or something like Special Defensive Magic Guard Clefable, I guess you could use Metal against those. But besides that, Toxic Zapdos plus its offensive output is just such a great utility Pokemon. It also can run Pressure or Static to threaten other status or stall you on the long haul. And on top of that, it could also run Sub Roost. It could run a whole sorts, a slew of things, honestly. Thankfully, though, I have Rhyperior. And Rhyperior could shrug off Toxic, set up rocks, potentially threaten it. It's just a lot. Yeah, Ferrothorn on his team actually isn't amazing here. It kind of forces me a bit clunky, but Heat Wave, Tornadus T can deal with it, can defy against it. Sylveon potentially can run Mystical Fire. Rhyperior can potentially run Fire Punch. Slowbro can potentially run Fire Blast. Aegislash can do a whole multitude of things. Word and Woe can trick it or wisp it. So yeah, I have my outs there, but Obviously, it's a hazard setter and can cripple you with knockoff, leech seed, gyro ball, power whip, iron head, body press, knockoff, toxic, thunderwave, you name it. Firethorn's a very versatile defensive presence, and it also has some nice longevity with leech seed plus leftovers on a team that generally lacks wish. And lacking wish in this format is something that I personally try to avoid, just because wish is so crucial. But I probably play a bit more bulkier by default than other people because I'm not afraid of longer games. So um, that is fair. Not having it, it's just not personally for me. But the one thing that really put it over the edge in me, like made me really scared, was this weekend. And why is that? Well, this weekend runs so many things, and I knew that if I use my Slowbro to check Suicune, then it's going to be taking repeated toxics, it's going to be taking burns, could even take a Shadow Ball from an offensive Suicune, which is something I was actually very scared of. A Combine 3 attack strat with Ice Beam, Shadow Ball, and Scald, Surf, or Hydro Pump. So I knew if I did that, then I'd probably lose to Gallade in long haul, or something like Turtonator could be annoying, etc. So therefore, I used an interesting run of most set with Nasty Plot plus Thunderbolt plus Volt Switch, just so I could be capable of taking out Kuhn in all sorts of scenarios. I always live a +1 modest Ice Beam after rocks, and I shrug off other hits as well. And I'm quicker than any modest Suicune as well. But we'll get to sets more later. In general, Suicune has a ton of versatility. It could run offense, it could run Roar with the spikes, it could run Toxic, it could run Rest, Substitute. It could use pressure in so many ways, and it's really cool. Crocodile, what's cool about Crocodile in this build is that it decompresses Ferrothorn if you want to run rocks on it, but you can also run breaker sets like Choice Bandage or taunt 3 attacks, or taunt 2 attacks with Stealth Rock. Um, and of course, there's also the potential of a bulk up plus power trip set. So I just knew right off the bat that this crocodile could be a menace to society, and unfortunately, I'm a part of this society that I just alluded to. So I've got to keep my eyes open. I've got to be wary of that. Rabambi was something I actually didn't think he'd bring. I didn't think he'd bring Rabambi or Haunter, in part because of the next Pokemon, Turtonator, which I'll get to before Rabambi. Turtonator, with a Shell Smash under its belt, outruns max speed Tornado's T by 1 point if it's running a plus speed nature. And the second I found that out, my heart sank because I was just hoping to run a max speed set and revenge kill it, but turned out that wasn't a possibility anymore, so I changed the plans a little bit. But what's cool is that the only physical move it really learns that I could use to abuse Sylveon, not Flare Blitz or anything, is Iron Tail. So I could EV to comfortably live that at +2. Still have a lot of EVs to spare and a nature to spare as well in Sylveon, which is cool. And if I really wanted to go full special defense, I could also live 2+2 Timid Fire Blast from Turtonator after leftovers, like 80% of the time with Protect always. And Hyper Voice is too if yelling offensive Turtonator, but Rhyperior dies to +2 Draco unless it's like max plus plus, which I wasn't running. Slowbro dies to +2 Draco. Ageless dies to +2 Fire Blast. I didn't bring Mandibuzz. Rotomo is obviously dying into an age season, living a +2 hit unless it's Assault Vest, and I wasn't running Assault Vest. So I really needed to find a way to preserve Sylveon for potential heal belt purposes, weekend purposes, even checking a Gallade hit purposes, not to mention potentially non-Corvid Bombi purposes. So all those things while still checking Turtonator. So that felt like a big burden, and that was actually something I was really worried about. But it turned out he didn't bring Turtonator, which we'll get to later. As for a Bombi, though, if he did bring that, I didn't think it'd be Sticky Whip, just because Sticky Whip makes little sense to bring against a team like mine, or my Tornadus T and Rotomo, my 2 fast Pokemon, and they're not grounded. By design, actually, I picked Rotomo a bit just so scared of like facing some wedge teams, which could abuse something that's like Aegislash being slower, and then use like their slower breakers to really destroy me. Um, but it turned out that really never came into play, and Slowbro and Sylveon are already pretty naturally slow, so yeah, that's just great. Yeah, I mean, I feel really good against Stick Up Star, so I knew if he's going to bring it, it's going to be like a Quiver Dance bulky set, which can potentially live like Shadow Balls at +1 bulk and just like roost it up. Also, sit on Slowbro all day, sit on Rotomo, etc. I'd set up on Sylveon and 1v1 that. Haunter, I was almost sure I wasn't bringing because I have Mandibuzz, I have Tornadus T, and I have Shadow Sneak Aegislash, and it doesn't even 1v1 my other three, barring. I actually can 1v1 Rotomo, but I can potentially play with EVs to live it, hit, and then get a Thunder Wave off or a strong Thunderbolt off, and then it's just kind of goodbye Haunter. See, Haunter just seems like a really useless pick. Out of all the 3-point Pokemon, I was surprised to see you pick that. But it does have some nice matchups against Fairy types, and seeing as his only resistive Fairy type right now is Ferrothorn, and Ferrothorn steps with Spikes, so you get a spin blocker. It does make some sense in some particular matchups, especially if you're facing some of the lower tier spinners like Hitmontop or Eldegoss. It makes a ton of sense against. So yeah, I get some merit there. It's just something I didn't expect to play here, as I had none of those things. And in particular, I had Mandibuzz, which is a great answer to it, and I have other checks to it as well. As for my team, it's the normal Tornadus, Therian, Aegislash, Mega Slowbro, Rhyperior, Mandibuzz, Sylveon, and Rotomo. So the Pokemon I elected to drop here, interestingly enough, was Mandibuzz. And it's the first time I've dropped it. I dropped Rhyperior 4 times, and I've dropped Tornadus T in that one kind of outlier matchup as well. But this time around, I knew I needed all my other things. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go through all of the things we expected from his Pokemon, and then all of the things I use in my Pokemon just to kind of A, counteract that, and B, break through that. As for Mega Gallade, as we found out during the match, he used the Throat Chop set, which was really cool. I did not anticipate Throat Chop. I didn't actually know Mega Gallade got Throat Chop, which was definitely a misplay in the builder on my part. So that's a blunder that I really didn't want to have to afford to make. So that's very something noteworthy. But I knew right off the bat he was going to use a Sword Stance set with Close Combat. And I figured he'd use knockoff or Shadow Sneak, one of those two. It lets him hit Aegislash either way. But if he used Shadow Sneak, which is fine because it could prevent my Aegislash from Shadow Sneak, it Revenge a Weaken, Tornado's T, etc. Then I figured he'd use Leaf Blade because +2 Leaf Blade hits Mega Slowbro, and it hits Rhyperior without locking close combat and taking the defense drop. So I kind of figured it'd be Swords Dance 3 attacks. One other kind of fringe pick I knew he could use was Poison Jab, and something that's cool that I didn't know before this is Mega Gallade does not learn Shadow Claw. So I don't know what Game Freak was thinking, but hey, I appreciate him not having that mid-ground option to hit Aegislash plus Slowbro without having Nox weaken damage into a potential Colbur Berry or Mega Stone. So yeah, that was cool. But I figured he'd run Swords Dance 3 attacks. As for spreads, I knew right off the bat there's no chance Melly was running Timid. Just because Timid's still slower than Tornado's T. And also, I have nothing really faster than Adamant. So I figured he'd run Adamant and he'd run enough EVs to creep Rotom Mow, and he wouldn't go quicker than that. But also, I'm my Tornado's T ran faster than that anyway. I ran faster than any Adamant Galley. But we'll get into that in a bit. As for Zapdos, I knew right off the bat it was going to have two moves, both Defog and Toxic. That's because it's really good against Rhyperior. I figured he'd also run Roost. So Defog, Roost, Toxic. Um, I figured those would be on the set for sure. I think he was gonna. I really thought he was gonna use Defog because I thought he'd use a non-heavy duty boost to set up Turtonator. Um, Having that white herb could really help, like living things from like Hyper Voice from Sylveon or living Shadow Sneaks from Slash after you've set up. So yeah, I figured that would be the play, and then he wouldn't run Substitute because I could potentially have Rock Boss on Rhyperior, which could really decimate him. I figured that the last move would more likely than not be Hurricane. Hurricane lets you hit both Rhyperior for some damage as opposed to none, and also Rotom for non-super resisted damage. It also could potentially confuse Sylveon, giving free turns to other things. And it still does enough to Slowbro plus Toxic plus Hurricane. I mean, you're one running Slowbro regardless. So the only thing you miss out on is sitting Tornado's T super effectively. So I figured he'd run that, but I knew there was a chance he could run Electric Move, so I was going to have to scout for that. I knew there was a chance he could run something like Metal Sound with Toxic as well. That could potentially do a number to Rhyperior and Sylveon. I was actually really scared of Metal Sound, truth be told. I didn't think he'd run any really offensive variants, though. I knew it would be defensive with Toxic at the very least. There's still a lot of versatility open there. As for ability, Jake said that Static was more likely, but personally, I thought if he's running a sub-variant, it has to be Pressure. And I also knew that I wasn't going to attack and do it with a physical move like Knock from Tornado Steer, Shadow Claw / Shadow Sneak from Thunder from Aegislash until I was sure of what ability it had. So I just kind of went playing a bit cautious there. I was kind of 50-50 on which would be. I think Static's a bit more common, but Pressure has a ton of niche, and also running Pressure with Suicune that has Pressure can go a long way. As for Ferrothorn, I knew that if it went for non-Stealth Rock and the first turn it was in, then it was probably Stealth Rock Crocodile, and it had spikes for sure. Figured it'd be spikes regardless. Leech Seed also seems really good against my team, as Rotom is a great answer to Ferrothorn. As for other moves, I knew that Knockoff and Toxic were more likely than other crippling status moves. Body Press doesn't really do much against my team. Power Whip seems unnecessary. Yeah, it's Slowbro and Rhyperior for super effective damage, but I'm not really staying in those situations unless I've got a fire move anyway. If I have a fire move, then I'm threatening him regardless. So, kind of a moot point, if you will. And Toxic is just really good with the pressure Pokemon, and also it's forcing Heal Bells, because I obviously run Heal Bell Sylveon a ton of times. As for Suicune, I also thought that it could run Toxic, but Suicune I had a bit of an existential crisis in preparing for, honestly. So it could run Rest, Calm Mind, Sleep Talk, Scald, Crocoon. It could run Toxic over Sleep Talk on that. It could run Sub Toxic. It could run Sub Calm Mind. It could run Calm Mind Roar. It could run Toxic Roar. It could drop Scald completely and run Toxic Roar, Rest, Sleep Talk. It could run offensive Calm Mind 3 attacks with Calm Mind, Ice Beam, Shadow Ball on a water move. It could run Calm Mind 2 attacks with Calm Mind, Ice Beam, or Shadow Ball. Scald or Surf or Hydro Pump and Roar or Substitute or Toxic. There are so many things you can run, and preparing for all of them was so hard. So I made sure to set out to have a game plan for all of those potential variations of Suicune. The fact that matters for something that's generally seen as a tanky water that could be a wind conditioner or a toxic abuser, it actually is ridiculously versatile Suicune. And I'd argue that it being worth 14 points and only fitting on a sort of like type of dedicated balance does limit it, but in reality, it could actually be so well catered to the opposing team that Suicune is a very underrated Pokemon in the draft format. And now that I'm preparing against it, I really noticed that, and I've kind of noticed that about other Pokemon that I overlooked in the draft as well. Zapdos being a prime example of that itself. I could have picked Zapdos. Actually, no, I don't think I could have. I don't think it was still around in the second round. Never mind. But Zapdos is great. Anyway, so Suicune, I'm like, wow, this guy drafted such a nice team. These first four alone gives me a handful to prepare for. But then he also has Crocodile. And honestly, Crocodile doesn't do a ton against me because I have Mandibuzz, but I'm not bringing Mandibuzz. That's the one drawback not bringing Mandibuzz. No resistance to the dual stab with Crocodile. But I kind of figured he'd try and creep most Mandibuzz and maybe run Taunt or Toxic. And also, if it's the Stealth Rocker, then he's got Spikes and Ferrothorn anyway, and one of those sets is going to be dedicated to Crippling Mandibuzz. So one of them had to have Toxic, or that could have been Taunt plus Toxic or Knockoff or Stone Edge, So I just figured he'd have some anti-Mandibuzz measures. I've brought Mandibuzz every time, and usually it's fast Mandibuzz as well for things like Needle Queen and Hoopa that I've already faced a number of times. So yeah, but thankfully, thankfully, despite not bringing Mandibuzz, I was able to be okay against it. He turned out to bring more offensive variant, but in particular in my prep for it, I was actually a really physically defensive Tornadus T with EVs for it, which we'll get to later. But I knew I needed to have a game plan for offensive and kind of like defensive variant. So we'll get to that more. I also had a really cool surprise that I did get to show off, which we'll discuss momentarily. Rabambi, I really was pretty sure he wasn't going to bring because I thought Turtonator was more likely. But if he did, again, I thought Bulky Quiver Dance set. Turtonator, I outlined the Shell Smash set a bit before, so I was really expecting Shell Smash set. Particularly with Dragon Tail, no, Iron Tail, sorry, for Sylveon. Would have been really cool if he did bring that, see if I would have been able to stack up against it well. But he went for more of a bulky approach, and that's fine. I didn't end up bringing it. Didn't need the Rapid Spin or the utility it could have used in Haunter. I just flat out didn't expect it. I actually didn't prepare for it much, but I did have plans against it. I ran some calcs. I was like, I'm naturally fine against it. And when you feel that way about one of the filler mons, odds are they're not going to bring it. Especially an 11 mon, but an 8 mon as well. So, let's talk about my team and how I prepared for all this. And yeah, I know this is lengthy and you don't see the battle on your screen yet, and your instant gratification senses are tingling. I want to see battle. I want to see Finch drop all them bars about what he did in the battle, how he played, did he win or not, yada yada yada. But stick with me. The preparation is just as important as the battle in draft league, and I personally find it fascinating. But if not, personally, what I'd advise doing is just skipping 5 minutes ahead right now, and odds are you'll roughly be towards the battle at that point. So first off the bat, we're gonna go set by set. Tornadus T. I knew that he was going to have Zapdos, and Zapdos is the second best counter in the entire game to Tornadus T. Actually, probably the best. Yeah, due to the coverage Tornadus T. Zapdos is probably the best counter. I was going to say Lantern, but like Lantern isn't really. Yeah, the main thing is Lantern can run leftovers over heavy duty boots, I guess. But the most susceptible to some things, Zapdos is just better. And I mean, also there's things like Rotom Fan, which match up similarly, I guess. But let's recover it. That's besides the point. We're not going to get into a tangent on what checks encounters Tornadus T. Sorry. So I knew right off the bat I didn't really need Hurricane. Despite it hitting everything else in the team neutrally, or super effectively in the case of Rabambi and Gallade, I just didn't feel a need for Hurricane. In fact, I also didn't feel a need for speed for Gallade. Or speed for max speed Zapdos. My thought was this. He could max out his speed on Crocodile, especially if he's like an offensive variant and just lays with EVs. But what I wanted to do is I outspent max speed Crocodile and Haunter because I knew he wasn't going to outrun much with Zapdos. I figured he'd run a specially defensive variant because look at my team, it's all special attackers besides Rhyperior. So I knew he'd run a specially defensive Zapdos, and I figured the Gallade, again, as I said before, probably was Adamant. So I made sure I outran Adamant Gallade, I made sure I outran all Crocodile, I made sure I outran all Haunter, and what I did was I wanted to really utility set. So I actually made this shit like pimped out the defense. I didn't quite run relax because running plus speed nature saved me some EVs, but I ran a ton of defense, so I always lived a +2 Zen Headbutt at full health for Mega Gallade, and Gyro Ball from Marathon had a decent chance of under-damaging Regenerator, and I always lived a Choice Banded Jolly Stone Edge from Crocodile, and Adamant was a favorable roll for me. On top of that, I always lived any hit that wasn't modest specs from Hunter, so even if he's like timid specs Thunderbolt, I always lived that as well. What else? I think the Ferrothorn counts for the biggest, but also Suicune wasn't doing a ton with like +1 Ice Beam. I always tanked as well, even for modest. Yeah, that was cool too. But I think I kind of did that naturally with the HP investment I had. No special defense investment. As for the moves, I knew I wanted to be as anti-Ferrothorn as possible because Ferrothorn kind of shits on the rest of my team. So I knew Heat Wave was my attack of choice. I knew I was also running knockoff to cripple this, to cripple Suicune, to cripple Zapdos, and just displacing items in the long games is so huge. So that's great. So right off the bat, I knew I needed Heat Wave, knockoff, and also Defog was really important. As defogging is it's the only thing that defogs besides Rotom, and using Rotom as a fogger against Ferrothorn is a bad idea. So all those things checked out nicely, very nicely. Last move, Toxic made the most sense over U-turn. Obviously, I wasn't running nasty plot with only a really physically defensive spread, only heat wave. I wasn't really in need of anything else. I considered Grass Snap for Suicune. I considered Taunt, but nah. Toxic was great because Toxic Zapdos with Toxic Suicune, Toxic Scaled if he stays in for whatever reason. Crocodile, it hits everything besides Ferrothorn pretty much, and Ferrothorn hit by Heat Wave. So, yeah, Knockout kills Haunter. Toxic hits everything besides Ferrothorn, and Heat Wave Ferrothorn. It was kind of a catch-all. It was as good as a Tornadus could be against a team with Zapdos plus Suicune. And hit, that's actually really good considering that those two are like kind of shut it down in different ways. Zapdos especially. As for Aegis Slash, this is the most creative set I used all tournament. I know you guys say that I kind of maybe basic with my prep, so hey, I got my balls out on the table here. Listen the fuck up. Now I'm dropping some real shit. I ran Adrenaline Orb Swords Dance. And it was some fire. It wasn't even like Swords Dance 3 attacks Adrenaline Orb. Well, it was, but it was Shadow Sneak. So it had Shadow Sneak for Gallade in case the Adrenaline Orb didn't pop up. But if it did pop up, then I'm going ham. I'm going jive with that. I get that +1 speed, and I still have that Swords Dance up. I kill shit. So what I did was I gave it like 208-ish, 212-ish, something like that, attack adamant, because that means that Crocodile that hits 240 speed, 241 speed, which outruns Max plus Aegis Slash and Max plus Sylveon. So I figured it's the slowest will go on any Crocodile. Crocodile with that much speed, then Impus Nature, Max Defense, Max HP, or like as much as you can invest in that to maximize out defense. That Crocodile always dies to a +1 close combat from me with that investment. Um, which is really cool. So I felt I really only needed that because while there's a chance his Ferrothorn lives +1 close combat, he's not living +2. And on top of that, you're not breaking Suicune when it's at full health anyway. You need it to be slept or knocked or kind of chipped a little bit. Same with Zapdos, but it's easy to get chip on those things, as you'll see in the game itself. But just getting that, provoking that Crocodile sequence is so cool. And also, I live any one hit from Crocodile if I need to set up against it in like a dire situation, barring bandit hits or Dread Plate Adamant knockoff. And also, I'm EV'd in HP to live a foul play with my +1 still in the shield form, which is cool. Last things, I live any one adamant hit from Gallade, or if it's uninvested in attack, I live any 2 hits, which is cool. The EVs do that. And yeah, you shrug off any hit from Rabambi with or without investment. And I ran enough speed, the leftover speed. It always lets you outrun Crocodile at +1, of course. It always lets you run Adamant Gallade at +1 and Haunter at +1, although you can Shadow Sneak into that anyway. Um, but you don't outrun max speed Zapdos. But again, same with Tornadus. I didn't think he was ever running max speed Zapdos. He had to run special defensive for a ton of things. There's no point in ever going quicker than max speed Rotomo. So I felt fine with that. And honestly, this set, Shadow Sneak, Close Combat, Shadow Claw, Swords Dance, Adrenaline Orb with the specific EV spread, it was really cool. And I kind of felt like I was doing this draft thing the right way by using something wacky like that did just such a nice matchup. And yeah, you know what? There was some inherent risk in running this over my standard special sets, but it matched up really well here. We'll see in the game that paid off. As for Mega Slowbro, as I said before, I needed foul play for Mega Gallade. Skull's just always a nice move to have. I ran those two plus Slack Off plus Teleport, and I just maxed out the defense for Gallade and tanking 2 hits from Crocodile, barring Crunch. So, yeah, I felt pretty confident with that as well. Of course, Megastone, it is Mega after all. So, yeah, that was probably the most basic and easy Pokemon to prepare of the bunch. Next off, Rhyperior. So Rhyperior is interesting. First off, right off the bat, ran some calcs. I wanted to make sure I'd always live the Skulls from Suicune, just in case there's some like dire scenario, if need be. But also, this is cool because if I get leftovers knocked off and then a Wish Pass to do something like that, I get knocked off. I also still like from full health or after Stealth Rock, I always live 2 Adamant Earthquakes from non-Earthplate / Choice Band Crocodile. I always live a Power from Ferrothorn, and I always live 4 Hurricane from Zapdos that's uninvested, which is cool. I also always live an Adamant Leaf Blade from Mega Gallade, or +1 close combat is a favorable roll from me from Jolly, but not from Timid. I think Timid's a favorable roll from him. And I live any non-Energy Ball from Haunter. Even Energy Ball, if it's not boosted, is a roll. So yeah, unfortunately I couldn't live +2 from Turtonator because I ran Adamant on this. So I did all this despite having Adamant. In Adamant, I ran Fire Punch, so therefore I'm always breaking the sub of especially defensive Zapdos if it's sub. And I'm always killing a -1 Gallade after close combat with Earthquake. What else? Oh yeah, it's always killing offensive Turtonator. It breaks Suicune sub always, and even a max physical defense relaxed Ferrothorn with leftovers was protected with getting 2-hit KO'd by Fire Punch, which is a cool counter run as well. As for the moves, I forgot to mention, I ran Fire Punch for Ferrothorn, Toxic for Suicune, Zapdos, and Stealth Rock Earthquake. It's just kind of the most naturally best set. I didn't need rock moves for much besides Zapdos, and breaking this up and getting Toxic off that could be huge. And I also have Sylveon for Zapdos, which we'll get to in a minute, because I dropped Mandiba, so therefore next Pokemon is Sylveon. Sylveon, I initially had a full-on specialty defensive set to check Zapdos, to check Suicune. I even was considering Mystical Fire for Heal Bell, but more importantly, check Turtonator. Oh yeah, because you could live 2 hits from Turtonator special side. But then I saw Turtonator could get Iron Tail. I was like, wow, living a hit from Mega Gallade could be nice, and living 2 Earthquakes from Crocodile could be nice. You can just like crunch or taunt to fuck with Slowbro or Toxic Slowbro. So what I did was I ran a whole slew of calcs. I'm like, okay, if he's running offensive Turtonator, then it's one of two things. One, it's heavy duty boots, which means he's gonna be at -1 after a shell smash. Or two, he's got White Herb, but he's more chance he takes Stealth Rock. So what I did was I ran a modest Sylveon with like 96 special attack EVs, and if thinking if he's running Turtonator, he's probably gonna be timid maxed out, run all Tornadoes T as I mentioned before. So therefore, I ran this, and it's almost always killing that Turtonator unless it's got like substantial HP investment with Hyper Voice at 75% after rocks, which is important because getting rocks up with RPA in this matchup is pretty easy to do. And also, Turtonator is actually really specially frail, believe it or not, without investment. What makes it so good is physical bulk, although it's never really that good anyway. So Turtonator is kind of that mad Pokemon. But yeah, besides the point. And also, with that, also kills -1 Turtonator from full, always, assuming it's the offensive spread. So that's great. But on top of this, it's also always killing uninvested Mega Gallade after Stealth Rock, or somewhat bulky invested, but still enough speed to outrun all of his Crocodile. Because I figure he might expect me to outrun like Crocodile by 1 and outrun it by 2, something like that. For example, I ran those calcs as well just in case. It also kills those after 2 Stealth Rocks, and if it's like max HP bulk up, so long as it's not like max special defense, if it's at -1 after close combat, then I'm still also always killing it. Hyper Voice damage is a ton. I didn't consider Throat Chop. I just forgot that I had Throat Chop in my prep. It just didn't come up in any of my conversations, and I completely neglected to consider that. And he actually did have Throat Chop, so that comes into play later. But also, max HP, no special defense Zapdos. We weren't expecting that. We were expecting special defensive. Is also 2-hit KO'd. Suicune can be 3-hit KO'd if he's not specially defensive. Spoiler, he runs a ton of special defense, so it doesn't come into play. Crocodile dies in 1 hit. Rabambi can die after Stealth Rocks if it's not Boots. So, yeah, special dice stun, and then I put the rest of it, all the rest of VVs in physical defense, which lets you live 2 Crocodile Earthquakes from full always, or 2 Adamant ones after Leftovers Protect. You also have a good chance of living a +2 Timid Zen Headbutt, or you always live a +1 Adamant Zen Headbutt, which is cool. And you're always living any 1-hit Haunter as well, or any +2 Iron Tail Turtonator. So yeah, I kind of had all my bases covered. Last but not least, Rotom-Mow, and this was also how we're going to break down all of our plans for this week. This lives a +1 modest Ice Gym Suicune after rocks. It has EVs to outrun modest Suicune. It's Nasty Plot plus Thunderbolt plus Wisp for Fire Throw and a Volt Switch. It's walled by Crocodile besides Will-O-Wisp, but he's never bringing it in because he might expect Leaf Storm. And getting a Wisp on it is good as killing it anyway. So I figured that's fine. It is especially defensive enough to do that. It also lives a Mega Gallade plus Combat after Stealth Rocks, which is cool. It lives any Bug Buzz from a Bombi at full after rocks, which is cool. Barring like Specs, it might be a roll after rocks, might if you kill if it's modest. But he's not running Specs or Bombi against an Aegis/Tornadus T Sylveon. That'd be nonsense. It lives any 1-hit from a Choice Band Crocodile as well. But also against a Scald Toxicune, if it's combined, it gets a bit more annoying in long haul against Toxicross, but I do have Heal Bell Sylveon, so the combination of those two is fine. Against offensive Suicune, this set outruns it, and also you've got to predict with Ice Beam. We've got a couple things faster. We can even go to Aegislash, and then Saddle Claw's doing like 40% to offensive, which is cool. And since you're faster than Modest Coon, he's never running Timid Coon because it's slower than Timid Rotom-Mow anyway. And, you know, the damage output's huge. It feels like I'm safe against it. Sometimes I might have to trade a mod for offensive Suicune, but that's ultimately okay. So that, coupled with Sylveon doing damage and getting off heal balls from Toxic, and Slowbro pivoting in and toxing it, Tornadus T knocking it, and Aegislash setting up Sleeping It's Not Sleep Talk, it just feels like I have enough momentum going for me to stop Suicune in its tracks. Of course, if he cripples something else or something else on his team, then all of a sudden the dominoes could fall in his favor, and Suicune could get troublesome. It's a very specific set, but it turned out he ran a bulky set, so it's cool. But yeah, these are the teams. This is what we're going into. So I'm going to pause for a second because I need water. This was a long-ass free narration to the game itself. And then we're going to get on into the game. So thank you for listening to this. Game's going to be in 1 second. Okay, guys, it's game time. Let's get on into this. Sorry about that little break there. So as you see, I have my 6 in. Right off the bat, I'm like, okay, phew. He does not have a Turtonator, so I'm not going to have to play Preservationist games with my Sylveon and try my best to give rocks up all games. So that right off the bat feels like a plus to me. However, he does have Mega Gallade, Zapdos, Crocodile, Ferrothorn, Rabambi, which is the Pokemon of choice he left to bring the 6th slot, and of course Weekend. Okay, so looking at this, right off the bat, I'm deciding to turn the volume down a little bit because maybe it's not obnoxious to you guys in the background, but it is a little obnoxious to me. Anyway, sorry about that. So he is using some interesting Pokemon right off the bat. I'm like, okay, there's a chance, just a chance, he loses to Rabambi and Sticky Webs. And I'm looking at this, and it looks like it's going to play Bulky, so I'm thinking it's a Quiver Dance set. I really want to see what on his team has rocks, so that's important as well. So right off the bat, I'm thinking it's probably going to be Rockstruck and Spike Sparrow. That's huge as well. So I'm thinking possible leads from him. Zapdos to get a Toxic off is a very likely lead. However, Suicune could also inflict status. Rabambi if it's Sticky Webs. Yeah, so I think that leads are between Zapdos, Rabambi, and Suicune for him. Although it could be Crocodile, but leading Crocodile and Threat C or Slowbro isn't great. As for me, I didn't really have any clear choices in the lead, so just let's see how it goes. Starting in 1 second. Okay, so I'm going to be leading with my Tornadus T here. I just feel like it does well against everything besides Zapdos, and I can immediately go to Rhyperior on Zapdos. So I do that right at the back. He doubles the Suicune instead of going for Toxic, which actually kind of cues me off into thinking he might not have Toxic. I go Rotom Mode, though. I don't want to be scared of getting Scald. He predicts that and goes Toxic, and then I predict the Ferrothorn and go for a Wisp up here. Okay, so this is a good start for me, in part because, I don't mind the fact that I'm status as much as he minds the fact that he's status, because this lets me simply just Volt Switch off into Heal Bell at some point, and then all of a sudden Toxic be gone, you know? But his Ferrothorn being status means not only is he a ticking time bomb if I get leftovers knocked off ever, but also those leftovers are going to continuously be negated, so any damage is permanent, barring Leech Seed, and it being burnt means it does half damage with his attack, so now it can never out-damage Regenerator, ever. And on top of that, if I want to get funky and go to my Sylveon on it at any point, I'm not be threatened by a Jarable or Iron. So I'm feeling really good at this point. It's been an ideal start despite a less than ideal lead. So Wisp Rotom worked wonders. She has no Heal Bell on this team. So this is great. For those of you who don't know, I believe Gardevoir learns Heal Bell, but Gallade does not. So that's something I actually looked at beforehand. Anyway, right here, I'm just going to go for a safe Volt Switch, try and gauge damage. I Volt Switch, and it reveals that he's got at least some special defense investment. Maybe not max, but some. And I go right Tornadus. I'm like, okay, I do have Heat Wave, but I don't know if I want to show it quite yet. I think I go for No, I don't go for Toxic. No, here I go for the knockoff. And thankfully, he's Pressure. In hindsight, Toxic was better. But that's fine. It's not a big deal. He used Pressure. As I saw from the leads, I knew he knocking it off was foolproof. I go Sylveon here. Not want to take Toxic or anything. And then he goes for Toxic with the Suicune. Toxic, another thing in my team. As I get a Hyper Voice off, revealing that he's very specially defensive. I go for the Heal Bell here, knowing, okay, he's got Toxic in 2 of these things. That's something I got to be careful about. I want to weaken this Zapdos, but I don't want to be greedy about it. So I go Rhyperior here. He gets Toxic off. That's fine. I just want to get my Rocks up. Again, also fine. I get Rocks up. So he goes Crocodile. If he reveals these Rocks here, then I know the Ferrothorn lacks them. And he does indeed confirm that suspicion. So I get a Toxic off on him as I do that. Now, bit of an awkward spot here. I don't really have a great switch into this. I don't have Leaf Storm on Rotom Mo, and I don't want to take the knockoff that leftovers when Suicune is toxic and could potentially be toxic with Combine. Sylveon could die to 2 Adamant Earthquakes or Earthquake, and I don't want taunt shenanigans happening. But Slowbro lives any 2 knockoffs that aren't Choice Band, which it can't be, or Black Glasses. And even if it's Black Glasses, if it's not Adamant, then it's still very favorable for me. And if it's Adamant without Black Glasses, then you've got like a 1 in 60 chance to KO through those. So what I do here is I go Slowbro saying, okay, I don't think he's going to be crunched. And if he does, he's not going to go for it. He's probably going to go for Earthquake. So I feel confident enough in this situation. So I go to Slowbro here. However, he reveals my worst nightmare. He goes for knockoff with Black Glasses and gets a pretty decent roll, but it's not max, he's Adamant. And then he goes for Taunt as I slack off and Mega Evolve like Assure Living. And I'm like, fuck, okay. All of a sudden, the game turned from really good to really bad. He had a great set for the matchup, so props to my opponent for picking that set. I think he did a really good job of prepping for thinking about that. Now, all of a sudden, I'm stuck at 44%, and the Galade's at full health. Fuck. I am kicking myself. I need to wish this ASAP. I need to get Rocks off ASAP, and I need to find a plan to pressure the Gallade ASAP. So he gets the taunt off, and then he goes Ferrothorn. It's burnt already, so Skull's just going to be shrugged off it. That's fine. I'm thinking, in hindsight, I could stay in here and just spam Scald, but I kind of want to get Rocks off, so I go Tornadus T, and he goes for Toxic. So I'm like, oh man, he's going to stall out my heal belt piece as well at this rate. So I'm like, okay, maybe he'll stay in and go for greedy spikes or knock off, and he does. And I get the heat wave off. And all of a sudden, that Ferrothorn's down at 19% after he had a burn. So I'm feeling a little better now because I can potentially play the game pretty much hazard free with this almost dead, and this 64 in toxic and I can just continuously go tornadoes against it. However, I'm thinking, okay, he's not going to let the Firethorn die because he can still set up any layer on Rotom-Mow or any layer on the Slowbro, or potentially even be just a fodder against Sylveon or Aegislash or Tornadus. So I'm thinking, okay, he's not going to stay and let him take a heat wave. So what are his switches? He could go to Suicune, he could go Zapdos. Makes sense. He's not going to go with this. It's slower, 2 KOs if the rocks and poison. Not going to go this, it's weak to fire. Not going to go this, get a Hurricane. There's not my full set yet. So I go for Toxic, and he predicts that. Makes an amazing play. He goes for Leech Seed to at least replenish some of the health from this Ferrothorn. Up to 38 before burn. And now I'm down to 43, so I got to get it away too. So really well played there by him. I, however, get Sylveon in as he goes Suicune. And that's okay. I know he can't really do much. I believe here he goes for Scald, predicting me to go for Heal Ball, so I know his Toxic will be pointless. And that's smart. I do get the Heal Ball up, so Rhyperior and Tornado shield their poison. And I think here I go for a Protect, predicting Toxic. No, I actually just stay in and I go for a Wish, knowing that I really want to Wish that Slowbro up. Do I go Slowbro here? No, I stay in. I should have went Slowbro. No, I didn't want it to stay poisoned. I think that was it. And I get a critical hit here, which is good for me, as I'm going to force the rest quicker. He goes for Rest here, which was probably a turn premature. Maybe it's scared me switching Rotoms. I go for Heal Bell. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I can get Slowbro in here potentially, but he goes Zapdos. And did he call the Slowbro, or did I stay in? And yeah, I stay in and I Wish here. I'm like, okay, Wishing is lower makes more sense. I Wish, and I go Rhyperior, and I think he gets another Toxic off here. No, he actually goes for a Roost. And do I go for Toxic here as I heal up to fall? He goes Sub as I Toxic, I think. Yeah. So really good play there. Villain is full set. So he's not debugging it. So I know my rocks are up to stay if I want them to. So if I get another debug off, and with both his hazards set low, I can set rocks of my own. I have up versus no up, which is cool. He reveals Substitute and Toxic, so makes sense. My Fire Punch always breaks, especially defensive Zap Sub. Keeping my suspicions use that. A bit of 50-50 there. He gets it right, though, and I know I don't do 27%, so it's fine. But now, since I did get the Toxic off in that Roost, he goes Crocodile, which is a good play there. He doesn't want to keep the sequence going. But I go Sylveon there. He predicts me to Wish or Heal Bell or something, so he goes for Taunt, which makes sense because Earthquake would just be shrugged off. And I predict a Taunt or a Switch. And also, at this point in time, look at his team. Everything is weak to Hyper Voice besides the Ferrothorn, which is at 32 and burn, so it's 2 KO after Rocks and burn. Yes, we can come in and take a couple hits and potentially rest off, but it's at 0 sleep turns at 100%. You don't really want to risk that at this point. Crocodile obviously is dying, as you see. Zapdos, with heavy-duty boots being knocked off, you could potentially die to a Hyper Voice from offensive, so yeah. Gallade, you're obviously not switching in. Rabambi, you're obviously not switching in. So yeah, he made the right play there. Earthquake might have been a little better, but he made the right play ultimately staying in. And I get to kill with Hyper Voice there. Like, wow, Sylveon's actually really threatening to him if I could keep that Zapdos and Suicune pressured. So I'm like looking great here. So he goes for the taunt, I get the Hyper Voice off, and now he goes Gallade. And honestly, I am an idiot. I should have known it was Sword Chop when he brought it in. I was like, oh, maybe he's like Swords Dance with bulk and he's going to be P-Jab. That's fine, though. I've got Aegislash with Shadow Sneak to take it out if he loses this Hyper Voice. Or, oh, maybe he's just going to try and Poison Jab me. That's fine. After Poison Jab, even if it's adamant, I can still come in and live any hit from Zapdos, any hit from Rabambi, any hit from Burnt Ferrothorn, any hit from Suicune, and then Wish up, especially after a Defog, as long as he doesn't get poisoned and a high roll. Especially since he took so much time. I feel like if I was Sword Chop, that would have been an automatic play. But I guess he took the time to kind of bait me into a false sense of security. So this was just set up so nicely by my opponent. So he goes for Throat Chop after seeing him Hyper Voice here. And he gets the Throat Chop off on this. So I can't do it. And I'm like, oh, are you fucking kidding me? This is so bad. No. This is so bad. My Tornadus T, which is probably faster than Adamant, which he is giving that Throat Chop damage, is weakened. And Stealth Rock are up. And Heavy Duty Boots are knocked off. So plus 2 Shadows, and it could be the end of it. And on top of that, it also doesn't have Hurricane. My Rhyperior is in range of close combat after a Swords Dance or a Bulk Up. And it also could be in range of an Adamant close combat if it gets a decent roll after Stealth Rock plus Toxic. My Rotom-Mow is dying to any boosted hit and also could be in range of an offensive close combat after Roxas is. My Slowbro is still weakened. My Aegis Slash, yeah, it's at full health, but it dies to a +2 throat chop always. And basically, what I need to do is I need to bait Shadow Sneaks into range for I need to bait close combat so I could be in range for Shadow Sneak. Alternatively, though, I could go to Tornado's T and bluff being Hurricane and quicker, although I'm probably unquick because he's probably adamant. Or even get Heat Wave damage to put it in Shadow Sneak range. So I'm thinking, okay, if he's not Shadow Sneak of his own, I do have a shot here. And I can also bluff and maybe force him on the conservative, force him into Zapdos or something. So what I do here is I throw away my Rhyperior. I don't need it. It's more of a luxury to just get rocks up against Zapdos. I can still keep beat Zapdos just to force a close combat. Or if he's Drain Punch, force that. And then what I do here is I very quickly flick Tornado's T. That makes him think I've got Hurricane. I'm not really thinking a ton about this. My timer only went down 30 seconds this turn. So what I did is I went quickly to Tornado's T. I'm like, okay, I can bluff having Hurricane. And if he stays in, at least I probably get faster Heat Wave off. And then he's always in Shadow Sneak range at -1. And if he's Shadow Sneak and he's not plus attack, then there's a good chance I live anyway. If he's plus attack, it really depends on some other things. But I do have a ton of physical bulk, so maybe I do live anyway. I don't remember the roll. I don't even think I calculated. Because I knew if he was Shadow Sneak, I had to make this play anyway. So, and I didn't want to take too much time. I wanted him to think I was Hurricane. I wanted him to think I made this click with confidence. Not as an active bluffing, not as some calculated ploy. No. And thank God it worked. He switched out to Suicune. And when he switched out, I'm like, okay, I can win this game. I know for a fact I'm going to win this game. First and foremost, I can get my Slowbro back in and heal up. There's no way he's switching out to Suicune. But he did. He went to the Gallade. He went to the Gallade predicting me to switch out, not wanting to risk potential Scald or Toxic as I knocked it off or as I defogged. Really good play on his behalf. Really good play. However, I go to Slowbro trying to cover this up. I don't go to Sylveon. I don't go to Rotom-Mow. I go to Slowbro, which actually was kind of calculated, knowing that this mid-ground was very possible from him. And I always live a throat shot from Gallade, given that a max physical defense. If it's Jolly and if it's adamant, then it's still a very favorable roll. He'd need to get 2 out of 16 to kill me, I believe, or maybe 3 or 4 out of 16. It was something that was either at a quarter or below a quarter. I remember I was like, okay, come on, 2080 bullshit, please go in my favor. I remember I calculated, I'm like, okay. And I was like, if it's taunt, then okay, you win. Fair. Although I could get foul play damage off on it if it's taunt in the following turn on Fury, and then maybe I could win because it'd be in Shadow Sneak range. I don't know, but if it's taunt, then he wins the sequence. That's my point. So I'm like, okay, I got to slack off here. I got to slack off. And he goes for Threat Chip, but doesn't even go for Swords Dance. So all of a sudden, I'm at full health. And I'm like, oh my God, I can heal all the way up to full. Thank God. Thank God, thank God, thank God. So I get up to full, and seeing as he's adamant, given the damage before that I suspected, unless he got a high roll on the Sylveon, I can always kill him with a foul play, +2 after this rocks. I think I always do from full anyway. But he goes for the Threat Chop, he does 58, which is just another mid-roll from him. And I kill with foul play, crit didn't matter. And now I'm like, yes, I took it out, I took it out, I took it out, thank God. And now I predict the Zapdos, she's Roost or Sub, and I go for Scald. If I burn it, then I'm in great shape. I don't need this Sub anymore, it's luxury. But now I'm predicting him to just go for another Roost or Sub here. Instead he goes for a Discharge. If he powers me, that's great, because he can't tox me. If he doesn't, I don't get that, unfortunately. So now he goes for Toxic, but I get Sylveon in, I can start a Wish sequence, that's fine. I've got to be smart against this with Rotom, because I need Rotom for now this, and for Suicune with Rhyperior dead. So what I do is I Hyper Voice to gauge damage, 45, so he's got significant special defense, but maybe not max special defense, given that damage. He's going to be spamming Roost, and stalling out Roost is how I win this game. I go for Heal Bell here to heal off of this poison. That's important. And now I can Protect here, or I could go Tornado's T, predicting him to Toxic. Now getting Tornado's T in is crucial, because I could Toxic this, but he's going to predict that, and he switches out to Suicune. That is fine with me, because I forced it out. Now it has to take Stealth Rock and waste more Roost next time it comes in. It's only at 11 Roost already. And on top of this, I could get my Rotom and finally start getting Nasty Plots up, especially if he doesn't Sleep Talk Toxic. He, however, doubles to Zapdos. Good play on his behalf. With my Rotom, though, I'm recovering from leftovers. He goes for Toxic. That's fine with me. I go for Nasty Plot, forcing Roosts. Because I could Heal Ball this off. I could Wish this many times over. He goes for Sub, but okay, since it's knocked off, it's not leftovers either way, actually. So since it's not leftovers, it's Forced Roost there, as you see. And now I can just go for a Will-O-Wisp on that Forced Roost. And all of a sudden, now it's also taking damage each turn, so it's forced to risk even more. And since it doesn't have Heat Wave or Hurricane, I could just Volt Switch to break the substitute. And all of a sudden, if the rocks, it's going to be low. I go to Aegis last year knowing I live any 3 discharge if it's not invested. And hint, it's not. So I get a Swords Dance, and he fires off Ferrothorn. And in theory, I could get greedy here. I could Swords Dance again and Leech and potentially try to win. But I don't want to risk it being faster Coon, because I'm outrunning 0-speed Coon, but not by much. So he could have any fast. I don't want to risk any bullshit here. And I know the Adrenaline Orb is not going to work, so I just take my kill. Now he brings in the Suicune. And he's gonna be Sleep Talk. I'm fairly certain. I don't want to risk anything, and I'm in shield form, and not in shield form. I'm in blade form, so I can't risk that. He does get the skull, but I go Sylveon, knowing okay, this works. I don't mind giving me that so I can sleep through. I can force more rest anyway. Thankfully, that time he Sleep Talks rest. I get a heal ball up, so Rotom's scared of its poison, Tornado's scared of its poison, and that's great. Now here, I think I go for Protect, predicting Toxic, and I believe I get that right. Correct. Now do I go to Slowbro knowing I live Scald times two, barring burn, or Toxic plus Scald? Yeah, I do go Slowbro, and I think I use this turn to heal it up as he goes to Rabambi. And now this is weird because I see his heavy duty moves like fuck. This is Quiver Dance. Okay, I'm just gonna spam Scald because getting a burn on it would be great, and I want to gauge the damage. I Scald, and I'm like, wow, Mega Brawling doing 33 to plus Rabambi. Okay, this is a bulkier variant. I'm just gonna Scald till I die because it can't hurt the Air Slash, but I can't risk a stun scoring to switch in. This is just super uber conservative play. Slowbro is a complete luxury in this matchup. I'm not playing for differential. I'm playing to win the game outright. So what I do is I let it die to poison. It's at +2, but Rabambi, even if it's max physical defense, which it probably wasn't, it probably had some speed. It's dying to Shadow Sneak plus Shadow Claw plus Shadow Sneak. So I go for Shadow Claw. It does 31 in a Suicune, which reveals it's a plus special defense Suicune as well. He knows I'm forced out, so he goes Zapdos here. Really good play there as I go Rotom. This guy's playing his outs. It honestly does feel like this guy knows what he's doing, but I can take advantage of the situation as I Nasty Plot on the Roost. Another Roost force, by the way, leaving him at 9 Roost, which is so valuable because once he runs out of Roost, the game ends. He goes Toxic there. That's smart. My +2 Thunderbolt only does 57. I'm like, oh my god, this is so specially defensive, yet quicker than me. He probably just barely outruns me. He probably like predicted me to predict modest Suicune and like that creep. Yeah, it's really smart of him to run this much creep though. His spread was genius. This was an ideal spread for him. But anyway, he's so low, so what I could do here is I think I Hyper Voice. Yeah, and I know I'm still doing 40 with Hyper Voice because I'm modest Sylveon. It does a ton of damage. That's just forcing Roost time after time after time. And yes, I am pressured, which sucks. But it's fine because he's still taking burn. He's forced to Roost a ton. And now I go Rotom here, predicting the Toxic. I get that right. I'm getting these turns right. I'm playing the long game optimally. I'm really good at PP stalling for my singles Smogon stuff. And this is just happening to play in my court. Unfortunately, Volt Switch doesn't always pop the sub. It probably would need a max roll to do so, actually, given that Thunderbolt damage. So I Nasty Plot here. He's going to Roost here, but I know +2 Thunderbolt pops the Roost sub, so that's cool. And we're now on turn 70 in a 4-3 position. I'm taking poison, he's taking burn. He's using his subs wisely, which actually is starting to stall out my Thunderbolt PP kind of slowly but surely. So I got to keep that in mind. I get a Volt Switch. Zapdos is now in against my Sylveon again. And I think here I just go for a Wish so I can cycle back to the Rotom. I don't mind taking toxic damage. And now I go Rotom here. That's fine. I take Rocks and Poison and Discharge. But Wish puts me all the way back up to a full minus 5% Poison, 95%. He goes for another Discharge. Perhaps predicting a weird double. I don't know. Or just knowing you can't do much. Doesn't want to waste another sub. I go Volt Switch there. And now the Zapdos just keeps taking damage. It's only at 4 Roosts already. So it's great. He goes Discharge again. I predict Toxic, and that's fine. Rotom forces another Roost, taking all this residual with the burn. So I couldn't land Toxic on, so burn I had to do. I get the Vulture up, only does 11, so yeah, it doesn't break sub after all, because you see 11 times 2 is 22. So you need to probably max roll if you've not a chance. I protect here, protecting a Toxic. That's great. I saw Toxic. I get another burn turn. He only has 8 Toxic left, but I only have 3 heal bell left, so I gotta be careful. He gets one off there, as I wish. I'm like, okay, I can actually switch out with this and keep it poisoning, so he can't directly threaten me anyway. He goes Suicune here. Do I, yeah, I go Rotom here, and I know he probably eats a Thunderbolt, because he's got special defense, but I'm like, okay, I lose nothing in going for the crit or the power or the roll if it is one, but yeah, no chance in hell it kills. He goes for Rest there, and actually with leftovers intact, it's got a good chance not to 3-8 kill if he's especially defense, I believe he is. So I go for Nasty Plot here, and I get that Nasty Plot up. And he Sleep Talks to Toxic, but not that it matters. Scald's only doing like 10 to 12% anyway. And now that I'm so healthy because of the Wish, I get a +2 Thunderbolt off. It only does 74, which is ridiculous. It's a +2 super effective Thunderbolt. Suicune is crazy, but I don't want to take more poison after this because poison's already starting to rack up. As you see, I'm below half. So I can kill it with the Volt Switch, finally getting more progress. Now I'm in a 4-2 position as I go Tornado T here, knowing it could threaten both of these Pokemon. He goes Zapdos, and right here, I know I want to defog because I don't mind the fact that he's not going to be taking damage because I've already stalled out all those Roosts. He's only at 3 Roosts, and he's already low now. So that's great. So I can just get that off. And now I can go Sylveon. And I think here, do I go Heal Bell immediately? I go Heal Bell immediately. And now this turn, I think I protect. I could have went Aegislash in hindsight. But I knew he was going to go for Toxic here. He does, so I stall another Toxic out. He only has 6 Toxics now, I believe, and I still have 2 heal bells. He goes for Discharge, predicting me to go to Aegislash and Toxic, and I go Private Voice, but more importantly, he paralyzed me, which means he can't Toxic me, so I don't have to heal bell anymore. This means the game is pretty much clinched at this point, barring like a paralysis with Stun Spore from Rabambi on Aegislash and running Paras. So I go Rotomo here after the Wish, and he goes for another Discharge. And now I heal up the full. That's great. I don't mind if he Toxics me. So I go to Sylveon predicting that, though, because the fact that matters, it's just wasting turns means he's getting closer to being forced to roost, and he only has 1 roost left. I go back to Rotomo here on the Discharge. I'm just playing circles around him at this point. I risk very little with this sequence. I want to position myself optimally for Rabambi. So now I'm like, okay, seeing as I'm healthy the same, I'm going to start Nasty Plotting. He overpredicts once more and discharges, and now the game's just in the bag. I could Nasty Plot +6. He does miss a Toxic, but even if he does, he'd need ridiculous luck and Stun Spore, Quiver Dance for Bombi, which he's just not going to be. He gets this one, but yeah, now I'm at +6, so I'm going to outdamage Roost, and with Burn especially, I'm going to do so. So I'll probably do like 55 here in this Roost. He recovers 50. I see the damage roll. He is indeed, yeah, it's doing 59, so even more than before at +2 against non-Roost. So yeah, I could just kind of clinch it. He knows he's not going to stall me out, so he goes for Discharge, just get damage off for a Bombi. If it's Bug Buzz, that could do the trick. However, he's going to reveal himself to be Moonblast, and later he showed me his Energy Ball as his last move for my Water type, so it's fine. He does get Moonblast in for 33, but despite a special attack drop, I'm easily going to take him out with a +5 Rotomo, and I'm going to clinch this 3-0 victory against Mustang in a marathon 97-turn thriller where he had me on the edge of my seat. He had me in the brink of elimination with that Gallade. Well played, man. And thank God my bluff worked. Thank God this game played as it did. Very tense. All of the elements of prep came into play for both of us, be it his pressure stall duo and his Toxic Core and his Throat Chop, or for me, Swords Dance, Aegislash, despite the Adrenaline Load not working, my Custom Tornadus G-Set, and so much more. This was a thriller. This is all I look for in Draft League games. I'm so passionate about this. I enjoy all the little intricacies of this, and I hope you guys enjoyed this too. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this content, leave a like, leave a subscription, and hey, leave your thoughts in the comment, because guess what? I'm going to bring you guys all of my top 16 games, and it's as little as 2, because now it's double elimination, and it could be as many as 6 games, probably, maybe even 7 if I lose my first game and then win out from there, which hopefully is not going to happen. Hopefully I win my first game. But yeah, guys, there's going to be even more high-level draft content on this channel, and I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you guys are too. But for now, this is Finch. I really hope you guys enjoyed. Have a great night. Bye, guys.